segue. Alex, let's bring you back in. Well, what about Switzerland, a bastion of democracy, or is it?
At least one canton isn't, Brian. Just before I get stuck into that, I think what Mark has just set out explains eloquently to us from a 50-year perspective why it is not just that, as you say, we have local councils obeying supranational or NGO orders, which have come from the likes of the CFR, but equally explain why this bottom-up push is coming through the culture. It hasn't come by accident, this push for radical change. Right, Martin Sellner, for those who do not know, is an identitarian activist, and the originally French term identitaire means somebody who believes that the indigenous or autochthonous peoples of the Western European or Western countries have a right to advocate for their continued existence as a majority in their own homelands, despite demographic change through mass immigration. The identitarian movement is largely well-educated and youthful, and is known for its brave but lawful actions, unfurling banners, for example, has got itself in a lot of hot water in a lot of countries, including France. Sellner is from Vienna, Austria. His wife, Brittany, is from Oregon and lives with him now in Vienna. We recently reported in late January, the link will be in the show notes, the 29th of January episode, that Sellner had got himself an extremely rare breach of the Schengen Agreement, which is that participating member states can allow their citizens to travel freely. He was declared persona non grata within that and booted out of Germany by the unlovable German Interior Minister, Nancy Faeser. After that, he went to the Swiss Kanton of Aargau. The canton is significant, I'll be explaining in a moment why, to give a book launch, a book presentation, as they would call it on the continent, for his book Remigration, which people are translating remigration, but a more accurate term, given it's the use of the idea in history, in English history, would be voluntary repatriation. That's what remigration is. This is the plan that was discussed innocuously enough, it seems, by him in Potsdam near Berlin recently, when the German feds decided to tip off an equivalent of Hope Not Hate called Korrektiv to bug a clock on the wall of the hotel suite so that the scandal could break and that the German Verfassungsschutz, the equivalent of FBI or MI5, could wash their hands of it and say it wasn't us, mate. Well, Sellner was giving his presentation or book launch in Aargau, and with apologies that the first few seconds are muffled recording, don't turn your volume up or you'll be deafened afterwards. But if you listen to it carefully, you'll hear what's being said if you speak German. This is what happened at the book launch.
In der Denkbesammlung, das Mensch gemacht ist, steckt auch eine große Leistung. Egal. Haben wir zuerst den Strom abgedreht? Zeit verlangt von uns, dass wir die Veranstaltung auflösen. Sie werden auch jetzt den Raum betreten. Wir haben uns nicht zu Schulden lassen kommen, ihr zumindest nicht. Wir werden die Veranstaltung auflösen. Jeder wird. Ja. Handys drauf. Handys drauf. Aber dann jetzt sofort Handys drauf.
Ich hoffe, dass wieder Meinungsfreiheit und Vernunft in die Schweiz einkehrt. Bevölkerungsaustausch findet statt und Remigration ist die Lösung.
Now, despite the writing in English on the side of that blue police van that said border guards, these are in fact, or the leadership of that operation on Saturday, the 16th of March, was the Cantonal Police of Aargau, one of these 26 cantons in Switzerland. Here is Martin Sellner's description in his statement on Telegram, and I think other platforms as well, of what happened. He says, "Today, the police in the Canton of Aargau, Switzerland, stormed the speech, turned off the electricity, handcuffed me." Well, you saw that the first thing they did was say, "Everybody out," and performed a pushback. Now, this isn't Sellner's English leaving anything to be desired. His English is brilliant. Because he's well versed now in immigration law. which is a very specific and complex area of international and domestic law, he's using the term correctly. A pushback is prima facie an unlawful act by a state when it sees somebody and says, before interviewing him, I don't like the look of you, you're going back over my border. This being Switzerland, which is as decentralized as the USA, it's only the Kanton of Aargau that banned him. The Swiss feds were not involved. He says, I'm not allowed to enter the canton for 2 months. The reason I presented my book. And the police said this is the first time we've removed somebody from our canton for 10 years, while 50,000 illegals entered Switzerland as a whole, the 26 cantons, in 2023. But he says that his ideas will inevitably spread. Here he is on Telegram, on X, formerly Twitter, saying that he will challenge the decision. And it's interesting to see what he has given by way of documentation here. First of all, the reason that he was given for being booted out of the canton was he was threatening public order and security by saying it is possible to induce people to remigrate voluntarily. Elon Musk replied, is this legal? Well, Mr. Musk, if you're sincerely asking, I don't know. The question these days is all down to which judge you have and which jurisdiction you're in, because there's such a mishmash of cantonal Swiss and, to some extent, ECHR jurisprudence on this that would all cut against each other. Look at the documents he was given. First, equivalent to getting a naughty boy banning order from the high street by the British police, is a red delineated map of the canton saying, you not come here for 2 months, naughty boy. And here is the front page of his banning order signed by the cantonal police. If we zoom in there, we see that the one-line summary by the Aargau cantonal police of the case was removed speaker at an event which, in this wonderful officious German, is described as, which could be described as belonging to the right-wing scene. And then the reason for removal, it is for the preservation of public order and security. Sicherheit covers a multitude of sins in German-speaking countries. And here's the really scandalous thing. It is assumed, that is by the police, that if he stays on the territory of the canton, further rallies might happen. Oh dear, we can't have that. Now, why did I say Aargau is significant? Well, because Dr. Thomas Binder has his cardiology practice in that very canton. And Sellner got off lightly, you could say, because when Thomas Binder describes on social media he wasn't quite in agreement with the official COVID narrative in the early days of lockdown, the Aargau cantonal police, it's only a titchy canton too, they sent 60 armed police to get him out. So he's perhaps got off lightly, has Sellner, and that Binder interview will be in the show notes. He may even be watching it. He's a regular viewer now, is Dr. Binder. Similar things happening in Britain, of course, and here is a comparison with you could call it the Streisand effect, happening with Patriotic Alternative last week being declared extremists without being proscribed by the Home Office, a bit like that CFR saying liberal democracy, and now last week we see that the state is defending liberal parliamentary democracy. It gets ever more specific, but we see the roots of it go back to Rockefeller thinking. Well, Patriotic Alternative, the subject of this, we say, non-legal naughty boy order last week, they've had a complete spike in their Google searches last week. This was shared by Laura Towler, who, as we reported recently, has recently had to see her husband, Sam Melia, imprisoned for his stickers.
Okay, well, yes, it's coming here. Well, it's not going to be long before it's here. And if it was British police making that arrest, it would have been at least 8 of them, in my opinion, and not the 2 that we saw in the Swiss canton.